Hey everyone, welcome to B-TIC Talks. I'm Sumaya and I thank everyone for being here today. I'm so pleased to be a part of B-TIC Talks and I'm honored to introduce our special guest speaker, Shayer Islam, all the way from Sydney, Australia. He is a chartered accountant currently employed at job at a software company in Australia. He has completed his master's in accounting and is a certified public accountant in Australia. He is also qualified in ACCA. Hi Shayer, over to you, and thank you so much for allocating your precious time to be present here today.
This lecture is not meant to be like sort of like a motivational lecture or like a self-help sort of talk. I usually quite don't like sort of like the self-help industry now. So previously used to be like a few speakers and they were all quite insightful, experienced. But now it seems like, everyone's trying to do it. So it's like sort of a bit overdone. So I'm basically not here to tell you guys that you guys can be Elon Musk or like a big entrepreneur or like the CEO of a big company. That is not what I'm here to tell you guys. But I hope, and also personally, like, I'm not like, very a person who's very qualified in my field, nor, I sort of have a big role in a big organization, nothing of that sort. But what I thought was maybe that, if I would share some of the mistakes that I have made over the past few years, maybe that would sort of help you guys to either sort of be aware, be prepared in relation to them, or let's say, if you're mentoring someone, if you're someone senior up in like a senior person in an organization, maybe, you can teach these to other people. And you can mentor young people. I think that's a very good thing to do. So I'm not quite sure, like the people who are attending today, whether you guys are students or young professionals or experienced professionals. But yeah, as I said, it's pretty. It's a very very intuitive lecture. Nothing complex. Very basic things, and you guys probably all would probably know about it anyway. But just to touch on, if you're a student, I think it is probably some really useful points that you can keep in mind as you enter the professional world. However, if, as I said, you're an experienced professional as well, you can use this to mentor people. And I think mentorship is a great thing, right? Because one of the things that, previous generations or previous cultures used to do is there used to be a system of knowledge transfer, right? So the elders in the tribe, the elders in the community, they would pass on the knowledge that they have learned to the young people, right? Sometimes, informal ceremonies even, right? So, in some tribes, if like, the young people, they pass certain tests, there's a ceremony to mark that, they have now become adults, right? Because, they have successfully acquired those skills. So like in ancient, like in some tribes, it could be like something in relation to hunting, or if the father, like previously if the father was in a trade, so let's say the father was a farmer, or the father was a stonemason, and usually like many years back, the son or the daughter would follow in that footstep, right? And they would be in an apprenticeship with their father, and once they've done the training, and then they're good to go. They can open up their own business, they can run their father's business, take over the business, whatever. So there used to be this transfer of knowledge, right? Which it's kind of lost in today's society. There is a book called Boys Adrift. I can't remember the name of the author at the moment. But he's the author is a medical doctor, right? And he talks about an example, right, where about the Inuit community. So the Inuit community, they're sort of like indigenous people. You know how, like, let's say I'm in Australia, so the indigenous people are the Aboriginal people, right? So the Inuit people, they are the Aboriginal, or the the first settlers, like in the Arctic regions, right? So in some part of Canada, Greenland, and then some part of Alaska. So and so the Inuit people, right? So because they live in such extreme temperatures, right? So because it's like frozen half the year, right? And it's very difficult to process food or grow food because it's like literally minus 20, 30, minus 50 degrees Celsius. Um, so, farming is out of the question. So what you really have to do is they basically rely a lot on fish, and fishing, because as you can imagine, like in temperatures like that, pretty much everything is frozen from lakes and rivers. So it takes really specialized techniques to be able to catch fish in such an extreme environment, right? And so this Inuit elder, he was sort of in that book, in an interview, he was sort of saying how that whole culture is lost, right? From, that like previously, um, the elders would pass on this knowledge to young people. And now the young people, because it's not being passed on, and they are not interested in this lifestyle anymore. So what's happening is they're losing these skills, to survive in that particular region. And they have the wrong techniques. They don't have the patience. They don't know what to do. So you know the knowledge is slowly getting lost. So I would say, like, even if you are experienced professional or you've been working for a few years now, I think definitely consider mentorship. Just, if you have someone in your family who is at school or about to pass uni, these are skills, or the skills that or the skills that you have acquired yourself, or talks that you've listened to. Definitely try and pass on that knowledge. Like my whole motivation about this, especially in my life, I felt like I never had someone who sort of sat with me and sort of told me, okay, look, you're joining the professional world. This is what you should expect. These are the skills that you should focus on. For example, I literally just went in not having any idea. But truth be told, some people you know, do this better. Like, even from a young age, right? They have the skills that they would need to be successful in a professional environment, right? But sort of like the way I grew up is, I was sort of carefree. I didn't really care about education back then. My father was always pushing me, which is why I'm here at the moment. Um, but I was really carefree, right? And didn't have too much life skills. And once I joined the professional life, I really suffered because of that lack of understanding, right? Of that lack of guidance. Um, so I thought, because I really don't have anything specialized to share with you guys, I thought, I'll talk about, the mistakes that I've made, so that, what not to do in a professional environment. So first thing first, right? I think, although it is sort of not a nice thing to say, but I would say in the professional world, right, most people don't really care about your development, right? Like, I would say it's fair to say that most people wouldn't care because they have their own thing to worry about. Like they have their own families. They're all chasing after their promotion. They're all trying to get ahead of each other. They have lots on their head, deadlines, this and that. So really, like even your manager, um, most more often than not, he wouldn't be really, that sort of involved in your development, right? They would care in the sense that, what they need. So if, they require a certain skill, so they will push you to gain that skill, right? But they wouldn't necessarily sort of ask you or try and get from you, what do you need or what are you interested in, right? So the first thing I would say is, you need to push. You need to push for your own development, right? If you want to learn a certain skill, right, or if you want to join a certain department, or if you want to gain a certain experience. So let's say, okay, I'll basically tell you my story. So when I joined initially, so after I graduated, so the first place that I joined was like a small accounting firm, right? And as I said, I had no clue. Yeah, I just thought, I need to get a job, so I got a job. Didn't really care what it was. And then at the time, I was sort of getting married as well, so I thought, oh, I definitely need to, have some sort of cash flow coming in. So I joined that place. It was a small firm, right? So, and in small firms, what happens is, there is like there isn't like a lot of scope, right? If you're working in, one of the big four firms like KPMG, there is all sorts of work that you can get involved in. With small firms, it's mostly small clients. The work is not complex, and some of the clients are bigger, but those are like the senior people. They are involved in those sort of things, right? So the first 2 years, basically, I was doing the really simplest of jobs, right? And because I wasn't pushing, or I didn't even know what to do, and I wasn't pushing, to sort of learn more, um, they didn't care either. So I was basically doing the same thing for 2 years, very simple things. And after 2 years, I didn't end up really learning a lot. Whereas if I did push myself at that time, so I could have gone to my manager and I could have said, look, uh, I have done this for 6 months. I'm now, I'm good at it. I know what needs to be done, and now I need to move on, right? I need to get more experience. Can I work on this client? This looks interesting. Can I work on this assignment? I want to learn, that sort of side of the business. So because I didn't push myself and I didn't go to my manager and push my manager, they were happy for me to do these work, because someone needs to do them, someone needs to do, the very crappy jobs, right? Like the smaller clients, those that are not important, they always need someone to do those sort of things. And, because I didn't push and they were happy for me to do those. And because if I were doing those, I couldn't go up to them at the end of the year and say, look, I need a pay rise, because they were saying, look, you're not skilled enough, right? Because you're doing very low level stuff, so why would we give you a promotion or a pay rise? So because of that as well, they're happy. It's a win situation for them. But again, as I said, definitely have a plan for yourself, right? Whatever it is, doesn't have to be like, when you start off, right, you don't know what you want to do, right? You wouldn't have a clear idea, okay, this is where I want to go after 5 years, after 10 years, this is what I need to do, right? It's sort of like you discover as you go. Uh, Make a plan, whatever it is, 1 month, after a month, after 6 months, after a year, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to have this skill, and then push your manager. Because if you don't push yourself, and if you don't challenge your managers to give you more complex jobs, to give you exposure to the type of work that will sort of increase your skills, then you will stagnate in your career, and then you will only have yourself to blame. So definitely the first thing I'd say is, and the mistake that I made is, didn't have a plan, and didn't push myself nor my manager so that I could gain more skills and more experience when I first joined. The second point that I would say is, never be too casual, or sort of never assume um, that everyone is casual, or everyone has a casual mentality as you would think they have. So just to give you an example, right? Again, first job, right? I joined. The people seemed nice enough. I thought, oh, okay, yeah, it's a cool place to work. No one sort of doesn't really bother you. It's a nice environment. Everyone's friendly. So I was sort of like very laid back. So I was sort of laid back with deadlines. Boss said, hey, can you do this? I said, yeah, I'll do it. And then I'd sort of take my time with it while he's expecting the work to be done, right? So although when you start off, right, especially in your probation period, right, because that's where they're really sort of judging you, right? They're really looking at you and really sort of they have their own criteria, right, of the type of person they want. So they're sort of checking whether you're matching that criteria. So if you are very casual, you think everyone else is casual as well, and that's why you're casual. But at the background, everyone's really scrutinizing you, and then you have your 6 months probationary review, or any sort of review, and then you sort of realize, okay, things are a bit more serious, right? Because although you thought it was casual and everything was laid back, but the reality was everyone was sort of really looking at you quite closely. So that's also one thing, and that happens more when you first join, right? Especially, as I said, like, this is really my personal experience. Might not be the case with most of you guys. And I know a lot of my friends, they're very serious. They're very serious. They're very serious. They're very serious when it comes to these sort of things, right? They don't take these things lightly. From day one, they're trying to create connections. They're trying to sort of impress their manager. They're trying to work more than they're supposed to. They're trying to give finished stuff much before the deadline, because they're aware. I'm just starting now. I need to impress these people, right? So yeah, it's just something that just to be aware of, so that you guys don't repeat the mistakes that I did. Um, the third thing is, so what happens with university, right? University education, or like even ACCA or CPA or any sort of this professional education or degrees that you guys do, it's very sort of information centric, right? So you go in, you learn a bit of information, and information is important, definitely. You learn a bit of information, and you have to give an exam based on that information, and you pass or you fail, you get your degree or whatever, and then you move on, right? You join the professional world. um, but sort of one of the setbacks of university education is they don't really prepare you for soft skills, right? They don't teach you like how to communicate, or how to think critically, right? Or how to solve problems, or what are some of the frameworks that you can use when you're solving a problem, right? So these are things that they don't necessarily teach you. But once you enter the professional world, right, most of the things that you learn at uni, you probably won't apply it in your day-to-day work. What you are expected to do, and what you will need to do basically, is definitely solve problems, and definitely sort of deal with uncertainty, right? Because it is a very uncertain world, and especially with COVID, right? Who would have guessed? Like, no business around the world was prepared. No single business was prepared for a situation like this. Like no financial controller would have sort of forecasted um, all their financials based on a pandemic, right? It was basically very novel. No one was prepared for it. Everyone had to adjust, right? So there is no rule book, right? So, once a COVID-19 pandemic happens, um, you know, you can't just Google what you need to do, right? You can't open a book and sort of see what are the solutions to your problems. These are something basically you just need to come up with as the situations happen. So I remember when COVID started, right? I knew that our CEO, where I worked there, so our CEO didn't go back home for I think 3 months. 3 months he basically didn't see his family. He was just in the office. He sort of like Airbnb'd a apartment close to the office. So basically, 3 months, 7 days a week, he was in the office, just trying to figure out what he could do to prevent the business from going into bankruptcy. That's basically what he was doing, because he didn't know what to do, like when the pandemic started. But he needed to rely on these problem-solving skills to come up with solutions, like solutions that otherwise he would have never thought of. So that's very important, right? To focus on those sort of skills, because like I I passed ACCA exams, I passed CPA exam. Like most people, if they give some sort of hours to study, and they have even the basic of intelligence, it, I would say it's quite easy to pass. It's really not very difficult. Like you just you write your notes, you practice some questions, and you pass the exams, right? I think most people would be able to do it, but that doesn't really prepare you for anything, right? Especially in the real world, because imagine like you're the CEO of a company. It doesn't matter like you have an MBA, you have ACCA, you have a CPA. Doesn't matter how many titles you have after your name. Um, it doesn't really matter, because at that point in time, you need to be able to think critically. You need to be able to think creatively. You need to come up with solutions based on the problem that you have. And more often than not, it would be a problem that you have never handled before. So, 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 the third point is basically, and develop these skills, right? The more you do, the more you sort of develop the skills, right? So, you know, as I said, when I first joined at that place, that small accounting firm, because I was doing simple stuff, if I were to be put in like a more complex job, I wouldn't be able to do it. But if I would have already been doing complex assignments, then I would have slowly developed those skills or skill sets, which even if, let's say, I got stuck, I would know, okay, what sort of skills I would need to apply to come up with a solution, right? um, the fourth point I would say, which I've definitely sort of been lacking in this area, is having curiosity. And this is something that will help you in any area. Doesn't matter if you're a carpenter, doesn't matter if you're a web developer, doesn't matter if you're a CFO of a company. Having curiosity is like really important across the board. And I have observed it in my own life, and I have heard lectures and read books. And if you were to see one common skill or one common thing that successful people have, it would be curiosity. That they explore, they and it's something that you can sort of see in people, right? I remember I had a roommate during my university days, and he was just a curious person, right? I remember once the hot water system got damaged, or wasn't working for some reason, and so we got sort of like a repairman in, and he was fixing it. And I saw my roommate, he was standing there the whole time, asking questions, trying to figure out what went wrong, or trying to understand, sort of what that person is doing. And I was thinking, like, why would he waste his time, like, trying to figure out how a hot water system works? But I sort of realized it was more of that curiosity. Maybe that would never come of use to him, right? Maybe he would never have to fix like a hot water system himself. But the fact that he was curious, right? He was genuinely curious. And to be honest, like I'm still in contact with him, right? And he's doing really well. He's a product manager now at a technology company. And, you know, I've been following what he's doing, and you could see like he's just so curious. And his managers and his superiors, they understand, they see this person who's naturally curious, who's always trying to find a better way to do things. And, uh, and so he's being successful in what he's doing, right? And there's like, if you look at like all, like, there's lots of biographies of successful people, right? If you read books like by people like Walter Isaacson, he wrote a few books, and there's a few other people who write basically biographies about successful people, like being in business or sports. And you would see that these people, one of the things that definitely is there is just a very high level of curiosity, right? They're always exploring new things. They're always trying to fix new problems, right? Um, and once you have that, right, you can apply it across the board. Um, and really, like, when you're working in a professional environment, like something that your managers really hate is people who whine and complain, right? You just go to your manager and you complain and you whine, this is not working, that's not working, this is broken, that's not broken, and you just complain and complain. What your manager basically wants to hear is that you have a solution, or you have explored a solution, right? And that when you go to your manager, that you are giving your manager options already. You're telling your manager, okay, this is the problem, these are the reasons, and this is how I think the problem can be solved. And when you give that to your manager, they're impressed. But if you just go and complain and you're whining, your manager doesn't have time for that. um, so that's point number 4. um, I'm just conscious of time, so we basically will try to finish in the next maybe 10-12 minutes. And one of the things, if you want to develop curiosity, imagination, one of the things I definitely suggest is, sort of just try and limit social media, and try and limit binge watching. It's just that, there's lots of studies about kids, how, a lot of television affect their brain. It literally takes away their imagination, right? Because kids are very imaginative. If you were to leave kids with toys, right, or outside, you would like be surprised. In, they would invent plays. They like, I remember back in my days, like we used to play with tires, right? We just roll them around, like invent different sort of games. So kids are very imaginative. And once and you know how social media works, right? They're always trying to get hooked, right? Facebook, for example, um, they track every movement that you do on their platform, is sort of like a data point for them, right? Like they would track how long you're looking at something, even that they would track. And all they want to do, all the algorithms, that they have set in the background, it's basically all that they want to do is, make you spend more and more time on their platform. Um, so I'd say one of the things is, just explore new things, learn new skills. Like, online you get all these different platforms where you can, learn any skill basically that you want to do. And, they're not really very expensive as well. And some of it is really free, like in YouTube, or, very, like, it's not very expensive. Like there's LinkedIn Learning. There's all sorts of websites where you can learn anything pretty much that you want to do. So definitely, that's um, that's something to keep in mind. Point number 5, I'd say discipline, right? I am a very ill-disciplined person, and I have suffered massively because of that. But discipline is basically, if there is one point that you need to keep in mind, it's basically discipline. So if you want to master something, if you want to be successful in anything, right, be it sports, be it business, anything, you need discipline. Without discipline, you will never be able to master any skill, right? There was a study. It was a very famous study that was done. So basically, they brought a group of children, right? Like not too young, not too old, like just a group of children. They placed like a bar of chocolate, right, in front of every child. And the researchers told the children, right, that you could go ahead and have that bar of chocolate now, or if you wait 30 minutes, right, we'll give you 2 bars of chocolate. So it's your choice. So you could go ahead and you could just eat that bar of chocolate that's in front of you. But if you want to wait 30 minutes, you get not 1 bar of chocolate, but you get 2. And then they saw which children ate the chocolate immediately and which of the children actually waited to get 2 bars of chocolate. And then what the researchers did, they basically tracked those children into their adult life, right? So they kept on, being in contact with those children as they passed through university, joined, the workforce, and surprise, surprise, what they found is the kids that actually sort of waited to get that extra bar of chocolate, they were actually in general much more successful in their professional life. So what basically that says is people who are disciplined, right? So they can forego an immediate pleasure for a better result in the future. They will be more successful in the future, right? So I remember, like even back at uni, right? Playing guitar was really popular, right? So I sort of nagged my dad. I bought a guitar, and then what I was basically doing is I wanted to be popular, right? Or I wanted to play songs and show people, look, I can play this, right? Um, and trying to take shortcuts. But I had friends who were doing the hard work, right? So they were like really doing these really difficult exercise that weren't it doesn't really make you popular, right? You're not able to show other people, look, this is the song I picked up. They were just doing, basic finger exercises. They were doing, improving their listening skills. But sure enough, right? Let's say after a year, right? Let's say I could show them, look, what this song I picked up. Can you play this song? They couldn't pick it up. But over, let's say, 5 years, over 10 years, they were master guitar players, right? They could pick up songs just by listening, whereas I had to actually look at, sheets of music to pick it up. And, my skills were way below what they could do just because, they were disciplined enough to do the basics, to do the hard work. And sure enough, over many years, you know, they sort of surpassed me by many, many levels, right? And at that point, I couldn't catch up with them, right? Because I didn't do the hard work back then. And there's a very interesting documentary, right? It's called Jiro Jiro Dreams of Sushi. I don't know where you can find this documentary. Maybe you can look at Netflix. But basically, it's Jiro is a sushi chef in Japan, right? And he's, I think, the only or one of the only person who was awarded like a Michelin star, right? You know how you have these Michelin chefs. So he was the only, I think, at that time, the only Michelin starred sushi chef. And in the documentary, they were showing this one person who used to make the rice. When you have sushi, you have rice. So that person, his only job was to make that rice or prepare that rice every day for the customers. And so that person was saying, and he was a long-term employee, right? He was with Jiro like for 15 years or 17 years, something like that. And he was saying he's been doing this for many, many years. And it was about year 10, right? So he has already worked 10 years that he was one day making the rice. And what Jiro does is he basically tastes everything before they go to the customer, right? And so it was like around year 10. So imagine this guy is basically making rice, doing that same thing for 10 years. And then on the 10th year, one day, randomly, he finished making the rice. And this master chef Jiro comes in, tastes the rice, and says to him that now you have perfected this. And that person just, just burst out crying, right? And it just stuck me, like, just this person wasn't doing anything complicated, like, or you wouldn't think was doing something very complicated. He was just preparing this rice. He's been doing it for 10 years. After 10 years, he was told that now only that he has mastered it. So basically, if you want to master anything, I think discipline. If one thing that you can take from this talk is discipline. That's a must if you want to be successful in anything that you want to do. I'm just looking at the time, so basically, I'll just finish off because I don't want to take too much time. I'm probably making guys really bored. But one of the other things I want to end with is definitely network. Network as much as you can, right? Just join clubs if you're at university. If you're at work, introduce yourself to people. Doesn't have to be in your department. Doesn't have to do this in the same line of work. If you're working in finance, you just go and talk to the legal department. Make friends with people in marketing. Just increase your network, right? You never know when it will come to use. Like, imagine, like, Hazir. Like, I knew Hazir, I don't know, I met him maybe 9, 10, 8 years back. And like, he was a very generous person. He saw this guy from Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, didn't know anyone. And out of his immense generosity, he sort of, invited me to his house, and we would catch up every now and then. And you wouldn't expect such hospitality, like, usually from in a foreign land, right? And like, who would know? Like, after 8 years, right? He reaches out to me and says, do you know that I'm doing these regular talks for people who are interested? Just basic lectures about just to motivate people or just to gain new skills or new insights. Would you like to give a talk? So yeah, I don't think when we first met, he sort of would have imagined this would happen. So he's like thinking, okay, this is the guy, or maybe, if I make friends with him, then maybe after 8 years, what I'm planning to do, maybe he'll come in handy. I don't think he planned for this, but if he did, that would be really impressive. But, as I said, like, you never know when a person comes to use, right? Or when you can gain some sort of benefit from a person. Like, because I know the lady very closely, like, in our organization, who does all the recruitment. And I swear to you, over 60 or maybe 70% of roles are through internal referrals. Only 30% are basically advertised, and they sort of go through like a massive interview process. 70% are basically just internal referrals. So people who are already working in the company, they said, oh, are you hiring for this? Because what they do is, before they actually advertise, and I would guess most organizations do it. So before they actually go out and publicly sort of put out an ad, what they do is internally they send through an email. This is, a role that we're hiring for. Do you have any friends or family, who you think might be interested? And, more often than not, it's through an internal referral. So, and at uni, I was so, like, looking back, I did such a bad job in relation to this. I had 6 friends, and basically I was taking all my courses with the 6 friends. I wasn't part of any club. I didn't know anyone. But imagine, if you think of it this way, all the people that you would have known in university, would have gone and worked in different companies, right? And you never know. Maybe, you're looking for a role and you realize, oh, this guy I know from back in uni. And then, you send him an email saying, I saw that your organization was hiring for this role. I'm very interested. Can I send you my CV? And, next thing you know, you're called for an interview and you get the job. So network as much as you can. You never know when this will come in handy. The last two things I would say, these are not related to skills, just in terms of your mental health, just in terms of, being happy, right? Never work for a company that makes you miserable, right? However big the company is, however fancy, your job title is, however much money you pay or they pay you, if you are unhappy in that role, right? Day in, day out, um, if you go in and you feel miserable, your boss is a psychopath, your boss is a crazy person, mistreats you every day, is always angry, um, doesn't, upskill you, doesn't train you. Um, as I said, there's, harasses you, however much you think, oh, there is so much prestige in that role, it's not worth it. Like if you look at your mental health, like, your overall happiness, it's really not worth it. And I've really gone through such a phase, where I used to work in a company and I just had a really, really angry manager, right? Every day he was just like angry person, completely unapproachable. You couldn't go to him with any of your problems, and it was just miserable. I was traveling like 3 hours every day to go and from work, and then at work it was long hours, just a miserable time, right? And looking back, if I had another job, I even if they would have given me, let's say, $10,000 less per year, I'd happily take that role, right? Because once you are in a miserable job, it like yeah, I don't think there is any sort of monetary compensation that sort of compensates for you being miserable. So like if you have two jobs, go with your gut feeling, right? Don't always like look at the salary or the outward prestige. Think about you know where you would be happy, right? Where you would have the support. So definitely keep that in mind. The second last thing I want to say is time. So as I said, the the thing is simple, right? Whoever utilizes their time, they get the benefit. So if you invest your time, you will reap the rewards. It is basically a very simple equation. So now, if you invest in skills, if you invest in your job, if you invest in learning new things, and then you will get the benefit of it in the future, right? But one of the things that also is important, that you need to be comfortable with your commitments in time, right? So let's say in my position, I have two young kids. So I could actually give a lot more time to work, right? I could stay extra hours trying to make my boss happy. I could learn new skills. I could join like these professional societies. They have all these meetings all the time. But, I my personal preference is, I have two young kids and I want to give them a lot of time as they grow up. So, you need to be happy with, what you decide in terms of your time commitments. Whereas with my boss, it's just the opposite, right? So she is the CFO of the company, extremely busy. She doesn't have kids, but I talked to her once and asked her, "Oh, are you thinking of starting a family?" She's like, "Not really, because she thinks if she starts a family, then there's a break, and then that will stop her developing professionally." So and she has to be comfortable with that decision that she has made, right? So it's not only about utilizing time, but also being comfortable with how you decide you want to use your time with. So it's perfectly fine, right? And never feel bad about it. That if you have kids, if you have family, or if you have other interests, that you want to also invest your time there, rather than feeling guilty about not putting all your time in your work, right? And that's sometimes very unhealthy as well. And the last thing I would say is, as I said at the beginning, and this is what I'll end with, is, all these self-help gurus and all these, motivational speakers, right? All that they, one of the things that they, a lot of them try to tell you is, you can be Elon Musk if you want, if you can be Jeff Bezos if you want, you can be anything you want. It's all about, you having to do these things, right? You know, sounds really fancy, but real life doesn't work that way, right? And if you think that, you'll probably be disappointed, because there's a lot more things that go into these things, right? If you read someone like Malcolm Gladwell, you would see, like, behind every successful person, it's not just about skills, right? It's about timing. It's about people they meet. It's about a certain opportunity that comes their way just at the right time, right? So, you know, uh, never feel bad, like, if you're not like a big shot entrepreneur, or if you're not the CFO of a company, or if you're not the marketing director of a company. What you should, I think, focus on, or what we always should focus on, is, like, if you want to be a CFO, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, and you try and you put your resources towards it, that's great, right? But if that doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. What I think that we can instead focus on is doing things with excellence, right? That you decide that whatever the outcome is, right? Maybe I can be Elon Musk, maybe not. Maybe I can be the CFO of a company that I really like, maybe not, right? I don't know. But, one thing that I can commit to, or one thing that I, will stick to, is doing things with excellence. So anything that I do it properly. I wouldn't take shortcuts. I'd make sure that, it's of an excellent quality. It's of the best of quality. If I learn something, I try to go deep in the topic, not just, skim through books, and just, gain, like, very um, sort of shallow level of knowledge, but that I would commit myself to do everything that I do in an excellent manner, right? That anything that I do, I try and master it. So it could be like, a very basic thing in Excel, right? So maybe you're trying to learn, you know, something to do in Excel, right? Could be a very basic formula, but you put your time and effort to it, right? You learn it in such a way that you don't forget, right? And that all the things in relation to that formula. So what scenario to use that formula, what scenario to not use that formula, what are the limitations of that formula, what are the benefits of that formula, and you've spent maybe an hour, 2 hours, reading through blogs, watching a video, and then you've practiced that, right? So even if it's a small thing, try and do things with excellence, and once you make that a habit, you'd find that the results will come naturally, because you would have a very high level of skills in whatever you're doing, right? And that will show, right? When you're doing your job, when you're talking to your manager, that will show, like, if you have spent time earning those skills, or if you just try to get a shortcut just to get the work done. So yeah, and and these are all mistakes that I've made, right? Even in relation to the last point, right? I remember there was something I was trying to do in Excel, and what I basically did was, I knew a colleague who was really good in Excel. I went up to him and I said, look, I have this problem, can you just teach me, or can you just do it for me? I could have got into YouTube. I could have sort of tried and figure out, try to read something online, because everything is online right now. Like, you could find most things, especially with things like Excel. So I could have done that, but I was lazy, didn't want to do the hard work. Went to him, um, so he just did the formula for me, and the thing worked. And the worst part was, instead of even putting the effort actually to look at the thing that you've done, right? So okay, I didn't come up with the formula, but he did. The least that I could do is actually spend some time to try and see what he has done, right? And even that I didn't do. What I basically was doing, I was just copying and pasting the formula into different workbooks where I needed to use that formula, right? And if, for example, I lost that work, like, if, for example, right, my laptop crashed, for example, I couldn't, use that formula anymore. I had to go back to him again. Um, so yeah, so as I said, like, whatever you achieve in life, if you have a commitment to excellence, you would achieve success in whatever you try to do, right? Be like, maybe you wouldn't be where you wanted to be, but at least you would be a professional that everybody would admire, and that you would feel like a sense of achievement as well, right? That or a sense of solace, right? That you haven't been like a person who takes shortcuts, who's always trying to sort of just go by, and that you've actually spent time mastering something, and you would find that in that you know you would find a lot more success, rather than trying to focus on just getting like that particular role that you want to get, right? So I think that's almost been like an hour I've been speaking, and hopefully there was something for everyone to take away, and hopefully this comes um, as some sort of benefit to you, or if not to you, then maybe hopefully you can use some of these points if you're mentoring someone, you're teaching someone. um, so yeah, thanks for listening, and hope you guys have the best of futures, and have a great day. And so Hazir, or whoever is the co-host, like, if you guys want to say anything, or if any of you have any comments or questions, I would be very happy to listen to.
So much, Shire, for your wonderful talk. And here's the opportunity for the participants to deliver your talk at B-TIC Talks just like Shire. All you have to do is register at www.btic.uk, and you can find out more about it in our website.